Welcome back, YouTube viewers. Today I'm going to show you how I evaluate camera equipment and other technology hardware. Now, let's start with the basic principle of evaluating equipment. What is equipment? Well, by definition, it's the set of tools needed to achieve a goal. What is the goal? Well, for photographers, it's to take good pictures. For engineers, it might be to have a system that makes their tasks or even their lives easier. But the key word is tool. Cameras are a tool. Computers are a tool. Hammers are a tool. In my hands, this camera has the potential to take fantastic pictures. But out of my hands,
both of these tools have an equal chance of taking a good picture.
Now that we agree that the equipment we evaluate are just tools, we have to look at the next crucial question. How are we using them? What is the use case for this piece of equipment? To take landscape pictures? Sports? Store data? Run Photoshop in Lightroom? Drive a nail? Once we determine the use case, we see if the tool fulfills the need in an efficient and effective way. We start by assuming the tool was designed for the task. Now, you didn't buy a camera to mow the lawn. We have to accept that the manufacturer tried to design the perfect product for us. So, starting from a perfect product, we work backwards, taking away usability points. With this in mind, let's perform a sample review.
So let's evaluate the Sony RX100III. What's our use case? Well, it won't be used for action and sports. I have other cameras that are far better suited for this. I'll be doing some simple portraits, but I'm not looking for studio quality shots. I'm going to take landscape shots, and I'll be using it to scout a few locations. I have no need for macro photography. Any night or low light shots will be restricted to walking in the city under street lamps, or in museums where flashes are not allowed. The cityscape and architecture shots will be taken mostly during the daytime, and the camera will be used as a second body for some light video usage. And finally, we can assume that the photographer is an advanced or expert user. Usability issues can range from no problem at all or cosmetic problem through minor or major usability problem, and all the way to usability catastrophe, where all you want to do is return the product. So what are the requirements needed to fulfill the use case? Well, size is one. We want a small camera. We'd like to have good image quality, a fast lens with a wide aperture, and a viewfinder. I absolutely want that if I'm going to be taking shots outdoors in the sunlight. I like to have control over the camera, so I want to have manual, aperture priority, and shutter speed priority modes. I'd like to have easy access to exposure compensation, and to be able to do bracketing. Sometimes I do some HDR shots. Good ISO performance, up to ISO 4000. I rarely take shots beyond that. Obviously, low noise performance is good, and I want raw files out of the camera. I tend to shake, so image stabilization is a must. When you're doing street photography, quiet operation is really needed. I want geotagging. I know this isn't for everybody, but I actually use this feature and do searches with geotagging in Lightroom. I'd like to be able to release the shutter remotely or use a self-timer. I'd like the tripod mount to be centered under the lens if I want to do panoramic shots. I use iOS or Android to be able to transfer pictures to a phone or a tablet. I'd like a small tiltable flash. Quick startup of the camera would be good. And accurate autofocus. I'm not looking for high-speed continuous autofocus, just something that'll lock onto the shot and take my picture. I like the Sony eye detect autofocus. It doesn't have to be continuous, because my subjects are probably going to be still, so just lock onto the eye and take the picture. An intuitive menu system is necessary nowadays for any type of technology. I'm going to be recording in 1080p. I don't really need 4K. And I'd like to be able to record up to 60 frames per second, or 120 if possible. A built-in neutral density filter, and good battery life. And of course, the price. Now, how does the RX100 Mark III stack up? Well, for size, it's a nice small pocketable camera. It's got great image quality on that 1-inch sensor. The f1.8 to 2.8 lens on a 1-inch sensor is very, very good. You can get some great bokeh effects. And the range of 24mm to 70mm is adequate for what I'm doing. It's got a great viewfinder that you can hide away, and full modes for manual, aperture priority, and shutter speed priority. Now, exposure compensation. It's definitely a minor usability issue, but it's not easy access. It has bracketing capabilities, and the ISO performance on that 1-inch sensor is nothing short of astounding. The low noise performance is good, and since it's a high-end camera, there is RAW file capability. There's optical image stabilization. I can run the camera quietly, no one can hear me. But the major usability issue is the fact that there is no geotagging. I have to use another system to get around and do my geotagging. I have remote shutter release and a self-timer. The tripod mount is not centered under the lens, but that's a minor usability issue because I can work around that with a bracket. There are iOS and Android apps. The small flash is tiltable, very useful for bounce. The startup is relatively quick, and the autofocus is acceptable, although sometimes it hunts a little bit. There's the Sony iDetect autofocus. And, well, it's the Sony menu system, so there's nothing intuitive about it. But despite the drawbacks, I have access to a wealth of features. It does 1080p at 60 frames per second. I can go up to 120 frames per second at 720p. There's a neutral density filter, 3 stops. The battery life is pretty good, although I'd recommend walking around with a spare battery. And as far as price goes, well, it's not the top-end camera, but it's still rather expensive. In summary, we've got 4 usability flaws out of 26, and there's only one major flaw.
So as a tool, I give this camera...
Four hammers and 2 drill bits.
Not a perfect tool, but very good. Does the intended job better than average. Thanks for watching. If you want more reviews like this that go by use cases and usability, hit the subscribe button below. Let me know what your use cases are. See you next time. Well, I'd better go pick up those hammers.